when did you end up doing well? How I guess more, well, I know when you ended up doing it. I think it was like 1996 when that song came out. But when did you end up or how did you end up getting the gig doing like all the Tupac shit? And
That was through my management. Some of it was through my management company. My management company. So one of the first projects when we got our artist signed to A&M, the first thing the president of A&M, who was a guy named Alcafaro at the time, said is, "Who's your manager?" Right? And we were in LA for 3 days. We're like, "Manager? What's that?" So he said, "Well, here's some people
wait,
you
this
should talk
happened
to."
3 days in?
Not
Is that what you're
literally
saying?
3 days, but
Oh,
like
okay.
3 months. It was quick, right?
Wow, dude,
So
that is quick.
and that's a whole nother story. Like, it was just happened to be we were going to Gold's Gym to work out like every day, and
Okay.
that was happened to be the place where all the record executives were going. And we cornered one of them one day and just said, "Hey, you got to listen to this cassette of our artist," and that's
Okay.
how the record deal came about. But so he said, "You need a manager." So we said, "Okay, we don't know any managers," and he said, "Okay, here's a list of 5 guys you should call."
Wow.
So we called all these managers, met with them. We liked this one particular manager. And then he said, "Who's your attorney?" "Attorney? What's that?" "Oh, we got to get an attorney." So he said, "Here's a list of a couple of attorneys." So we basically interviewed some attorneys and said, "Here's the guy we like." Met with him, wound up doing a deal with this attorney. And then now we had a team, like, kind of representing us and helping us step forward. So my management company they had been around a long time as artist management, but they were getting into managing producers and mixers. And the other mixer that they represented was Manny Marroquin, just at the beginning of his career.
Wow.
So he had just done Monica, and they met him through SolShock and Carlin, who were producers who were signed to them, these Danish producers who were doing Tupac and Whitney Houston and
Oh, wow.
a lot of that big R&B records.
Yeah.
So when Manny was busy or needed something tracked that he didn't want to do, luckily my manager would be like, "Hey, I got another guy on the roster. Let me call this guy."
Shit.
So some of it came about through that, and then even more than the management, just working with different writers and producers in our own camp, started getting like, "Hey, can you come help us track this record? Can you?"
And that's what you were doing for that? Was it tracking or mixing for Dear Mama?
A little of both. I mean, that was done. SolShock and Carlin, the producers who did that stuff, did most of their work, production and mixing. They were like DJs and musicians, and they had a studio in Hollywood next to Sunset Sound, and they would do most of their work in their studios. So most of that work was done in their studios, and they like to have an engineer around while they were working, because the stuff they were doing was keeper stuff, even though it was their private studio. And Manny was their mixer. That's how Manny kind of blew up, was because their productions were blowing up. So he was the guy. He was like the mixer for all their stuff, and I was just kind of the helping out guy.
Oh shit. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, because I remember you saying what was some story about, like, because everyone's new to having like hard drives, right, in the 90s and stuff.
Exactly.
So that you were saying what do? They like pinned them all down to a fucking a board, and they like, what do they like bolted them all to a board and bring them into
they have
you,
those
right?
the Kensington locks for like computers and hard drives. They would put those locks on them, which is like a cable that attaches to them.
Right.
And they would bring, like, the Tupac's bodyguard or security guy's mother's security guy would bring a hard drive to the studio, plug in the FireWire cable, and then lock the hard drive to like a keyboard stand. And then he would go sit in the lobby the whole day. And wait till we were done working at 2 a.m, and then he would come and unlock the hard drive and take it with him and leave. Not that they had no clue that anybody could take the data that was on the hard drive and move it to our computer, but there were funny moments where this didn't happen in LA, but when I was in Chicago, when we were working with this record company, we had been there for maybe a year or so, and the chief engineer at that record company said, when we were ready to leave, he said, "Okay, I just need you guys to erase your hard drive," because we were doing remixes and working on projects for them. Right. And I said, "You need me to erase my hard drive?" He goes, "Yeah, I want you to erase it right in front of me." Oh. So I literally like took the hard drive and threw it in the trash, and I was like, "Okay, I erased it." And he's like, "Okay, great, thanks."
Oh,
and
my!
He walked out of the room.
Jeez,
So
what
then,
a moron!
open the trash, you pull everything back out. So
Wow.
it's not that we're trying to steal any files from anybody, but it's not. People didn't realize even today. Well, now I guess today now people realize it more. But the digital files are so easily shared, borrowed.
No, totally. That's insane. Well, I think I've heard a lot of stories like that from before people like really knew anything about like digital recording. Like people would be talking about stuff like that where it's like, okay, I need you to, now erase the session. It's like, all right, unplug the hard drive. Cool, man, it's done. Like you don't know any better, But
even the at that same time when we were in Chicago, they were doing remixes for Michael Jackson, and we had all the, like for the song Jam, we had all the 2-inch tapes, and they were copies from his master 2-inch tapes. And they send them over to the studio. And the first thing we do is copy all the tapes to another tape, just a backup copy, just in case. You don't want to work on the master tape while we're running the tape for hours and hours and hours every day. So we had copies of all those tapes, and I sampled all the drums and horns and guitar riffs off of those records, and the original tapes. So there's no way to protect. I mean, you shouldn't need to protect it from your own team, but even like 2010, 11, I was working. When I was at Nightbird Studios, we did the Michael Jackson, The Immortal was the Cirque du Soleil show.
Nice.
So remixes of all the Michael Jackson hits. And the same thing, all the tapes have been transferred to Pro Tools, or they were working in Digital Performer on them at the time. And every day, the Michael Jackson or Cirque du Soleil team would bring in a suitcase full of hard drives and plug in the hard drives and lock them up and then leave.
Jeez. Wow,
and it was the same thing going, like our whole studio was hooked up to a server. Like we could copy anything from any computer anywhere.
Yeah, it totally defeats the purpose.
That if we don't let you keep that hard drive, I guess that's the best you could do.
Well, that was you actually beat me to it because that was the next thing I was going to ask.